Welcome, everybody. We are so happy to have you here. This is Certipay's Coffee Break series for 2021, and we are on coffee break number 2 already. And we're going to do a series that is the entire employee life cycle. So we're right at the beginning of that with the recruitment process. And so if you have any information to share or something you think you'd like us to cover, don't be afraid to send it over to us. Send it to either me or Cindy or anybody on our HR team, and we would love to add some topics that you want to hear about in our Coffee Break series. So I am Rachel Kamala. Today I will be your moderator, and our host is going to be Cindy Merkel from our HR team, and I'm going to pass it over to Cindy. Thank you all for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. I appreciate your time this morning. As Rachel said, we are going to go through the recruitment process. Any questions, please put them in the chat box and her or myself will get to them. And at the end, if you have any suggestions above and beyond what we go over, by all means, more 2 heads are better than 1 times 20. So let's just go ahead and get started. The recruitment process, what does that entail? Well, first of all, it entails a plan. Once you've got a plan of your needs, then you're going to make a strategic development of your plan. Then you actually have to do the search for the candidates. Then you're going to screen them, and then you're going to evaluate. Now, what does all of this entail? Let's get started. The planning phase. Have a plan. First, you're going to identify vacancies. What does that mean? You need to know the number of positions you need to be filled. And that may not always be that they all have to be filled. There may be positions that you can leave open. So it's a matter of looking at the business needs and determining what is the most necessary vacancies at the moment. And the job duties and responsibilities to be performed, and the qualifications and experience required in that. Moving on to job analysis. Basically, the way to view job analysis is more like the hard skills versus the people skills of a job. What is the job? What are the duties of the job? Where is it going to be located? Who's the supervising hierarchy? What are the working conditions? Are there any hazards to the job? Those are the things that you have to define for the actual job itself, not the person to fit the job. Once you get that taken care of, then you come into the job description, which I feel is more of the personality of the person, the soft skills. You're going to look for qualifications. What does the person have to meet the job analysis that you determined? What kind of experience do you want them to have? Is it going to be an entry-level position? Is it going to be a mid-level? Training and development. Not only the training and development for the person to fit in the job from the get-go, but what is the training and development plan moving forward? Not only for that position, but also for that person. You don't always hire someone for the position right in front of you. A lot of times you have to think forward. What is this person going to bring to the table in the long run? After that, you need to take a look again at a little bit more of the job specifications within the job description. Exactly what is the skill set that's going to be required? What are the work responsibilities? And what are the emotional characteristics of the job? That's actually very important. There are certain jobs that are just meant for a certain type of person. And just because you have the skill set to do the job doesn't necessarily always mean you're the right person for the job. And last but not least, you have to evaluate the job evaluation. Basically, you have to determine what is this position worth to you and your organization. How much is this person or this position going to be contributing to the organization? You have to look at all the costs involved. And the best way to evaluate the job and how it's going to fit into your organization is to go out and do what they call salary requirement surveys. Go out and research jobs that are very similar to the position that you're looking for and see what they're paying. And see, is this something that is going to financially fit into our organization? Have we priced the job too high? Have we priced it too low? Is the job description too broad? All those things need to be taken into account when you start the recruiting process.
Can I add a little piece in there?
Always.
And so when we talk about, especially right now with so much of the focus shifting to remote working, it's when you talk about having a plan, one of the important things that goes right along with all of these is communicate with your department heads. Go to them and say, what does your business plan for the year look like? And get an idea of proactively, what positions are they going to want to fill? What kind of changes might they have as a result of our remote shift? Are there changes that you need to make to job descriptions? And some of these will help you when you're thinking of having this plan for the year. You want to communicate with your department heads and see what is happening, what is changing in their departments, and how do you have to create a plan to help them reach those goals.
Rachel's exactly right. That's the whole point of setting up a plan. All of these 5 things need to be involved in the plan, but everyone at a top level needs to be involved in the conversation and the identifying of the plan. So thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. Okay. Next, for your strategy development, are you going to be looking internally or externally? Are you going to have what types of recruitment are you going to use? Are there going to be geographical constraints? Like Rachel said, is this going to be a telecommuting job? Is this someone that's going to be in the office? Are you willing to pay moving costs to bring someone at a high level in? Things of that nature. And recruiting resources. Utilize what is out there. There's pretty much the best recruiting, internal and external, we're going to get to in a minute. But there's a type of internal recruiting that's basically the reason you are going to want to utilize any promotions. Let's just jump into it. It'll be easier. And internal, look at everybody that's there. Is there anybody that has promotable qualities? Can you transfer from another department, another state, another division? What about former employees? Or someone that may not be wanting to fully retire? Are they capable of coming back, or do you want them back? Internal postings. A lot of companies today require that you post a job internally for X amount of time before you open it up to the public. Is that something you want to do? Employee referrals, that's always a great way not only to get business, but also to get a high-level employee. If you have a fantastic employee now and they refer someone, you could expect that they would be of the same caliber as the current employee. And previous applicants, we always tell everybody we're going to retain your resume for X amount of time. Go back to that pile and look. There might be somebody that was just on that edge that just got beat out slightly the last time. That would certainly be a qualified candidate this time. And from an external perspective, direct recruiting, i.e. you are going out and recruiting, whether it be a job fair or posting on boards, job boards, things of that nature. Employment exchanges. An employment exchange is basically where you would lease the employee from an employment agency. The employment agency would still, quote unquote, own the employee, and you are leasing them. On the flip side of that, there's also employment agencies that you just literally hire from. They're just the conduit of the employee looking for a job to you, the employer, getting a good qualified candidate. Obviously, advertisements. There's a plethora of boards out there nowadays, whether it be a job board, professional associations, like the next one says. Any industry you can think of has some sort of association, whether it be, an electricians association, there's HR associations, there's professional management associations, there's medical, anything and everything that you can think of. There is an association attached to that performance or to that job category. Campus recruiting. It's always a good idea to see what's out there and who's up and coming. That's a nice time to cultivate someone and bring them through from cradle to grave, so to speak, as an employee. And obviously word of mouth. Word of mouth is one of the best you can do. How's everything good, Rach?
Yes, perfect. I was muted. Sorry.
No problem. All right. So after we've done our, at this point, we have come up with our plan. We've looked at our job description. We've determined what those duties are. We've decided what type of personality and internal qualities as well as skill set that person has to have. We're deciding how we're going to find that person, whether it be internal or external. So now the next stage is actually the screening. Review the resumes. Ask about reason for job changes. Back in the olden days, having one job forever meant that you were a fantastic employee. That mindset is completely different today. Having multiple jobs on your resume is not necessarily an indicator of a poor employee that's just jumping from job to job. It could be the fact that they are bettering themselves and every position has been a step up. So don't be so scared if you see quite a few different past experiences for job changes. Again, that also goes hand in hand with longevity. Just because someone's been in an organization for a long time isn't always a good thing. Are they not aggressive? Do they not want to move up? Do they not, I can't think of the word I want to use, but are they not interested in moving forward with their current job? Long-term gaps in employment. Again, this can be a good thing and it could be a bad thing. You just need to understand the answer. Lack of career progression. That would go back to the longevity. Sometimes folks just don't want to progress in their current position. So those are just some key points as far as what to ask when you are looking at a resume. When you're conducting the interview, it helps to verify with the candidates whether they are active and available. There's a lot of times where people are out there searching for a job and they're currently employed, and they may not necessarily be ready to jump ship. They just want to see if the grass is greener on the other side. Give a quick insight about their attitude, the ability to answer the interview questions, and communication skills. One thing that I learned from a past employer that I still do today, I like a round-robin interview, and I like everybody to ask. A round-robin interview is where they would interview with multiple people. The goal would be everybody asks the same questions, and when the interviewers come back together, if the candidate answered the questions the same, then it's probably a good, solid hire. If they were all over the board and everybody got completely different impressions of the person, that would be a red flag to me. Then what you're going to do is you're going to identify your top candidates. You're going to make yourself a short list. You're going to provide some insights and recommendations from everybody that was involved in the hiring process, and then you'll make the decision to move forward. Last but not least, you have to evaluate and control the situation. The cost incurred in the recruitment process can be extremely expensive. It's very time consuming. If you get the wrong person, it's something like $3,000 wasted in the first 90 days to get an employee up and running if they're not the right candidate. So every time you put someone through a 90-day cycle, if they're not the right one and you didn't do the legwork on the front side, you're wasting thousands and thousands of dollars because now you have to terminate somebody. You have to start all over, so on and so forth. Salaries to recruiters. Make sure these are just things for you to think about. Are you going to use a recruiter? You've got to pay them. Your advertising costs, you've got to pay them. Agency fees, those have to be paid. Costs incurred for candidates in the final selection process. All of this takes time and it takes money. Your overtime, outstanding costs while the vacancy remains unfilled. That's something you have to think about. If you can't find the right person on the backside, how much is it costing you to keep this position unfilled? As I said, administrative expenses and recruitment overhead. And the biggest thing for me is always your time of the management. Your time is worth a lot. So the better plan you have from the get-go, the less time and less pain you have through the process, and the less turnover you have on the backside. I know this was kind of short and sweet, but that is really in a nutshell. You need to have a plan and understand what skill sets you're looking for, the type of person that's going to fit into your organization. Go out and find that person and then hire them. Rachel, do you have anything to add?
No, it's really kind of simple. Just like Cindy said, we want to make sure we cover the ground. It's hard to find people in this day and age, and especially in some of the industries that we see. Some of you on the line, I know that you've got a challenge in your industry because you don't have skilled technicians or you can't find people who are willing to do these tasks. And so some of these recommendations that Cindy said are so great. Going through previous resumes, taking a look at job boards, taking a look at different places, and especially with remote options, you can hire people all over the country. You don't need to just be limited to your area. So you have some new options now that really will help you. And it's a challenge, but don't be afraid to think outside of the box and try to find some good people to fill in the vacancies that you might have. And one thing I like to say when you're looking at resumes, be careful of 10 years of experience versus 2 years of experience 5 times. That's one of the things that we see out there. So pay attention to that when you're looking at resumes. Learn how to read the information, and that will give you some good insight.
And don't be afraid to ask a hard question. A lot of times employers end up getting interviewed instead of being, the employee, the candidate ends up interviewing them versus you interviewing the candidate. Make sure you maintain control. And again, to Rachel's point, as far as how our world has changed the landscape of what a candidate could be or would look like, really goes back to the job analysis. You really need to sit down and look at what your needs are and how the many different ways that same role can be accomplished in the world we're in today.
And I would say if you're not using social media, use social media for your searches. Especially LinkedIn. There are so many tools at your fingertips. So if you're not already using LinkedIn, tap into that resource as an employer and use that for your recruiting efforts. If you need more of a hands-on type position, then go to some of the job boards in your area, or use some agencies that will tap into those skills. And don't be afraid to use social media. You can do posts on all the different platforms, and you can use some of the applicant tracking process, which is probably going to be our next one. Once we go into that, we'll go into the applicant tracking and why you want to use that and how that's going to be a nice tool for your recruiting process.
And I've also utilized the college campuses quite frequently in a past employer, just due to the nature of these specific skill set the employees needed. Their career centers are fantastic, and I got just a ton of folks from different divisions. For example, if it's a plumber, go to a trade school. If it's a high level, you need an MBA, go to that business college's recruiting center. There are a wealth of information and help, and those folks are getting ready to graduate, so they're looking for a job.
And the other thing is, don't be afraid to hire somebody who maybe doesn't have the experience. Get somebody who matches your company culture, somebody who blends with your mindset and with your company's values and mission, and then train that person. Don't be afraid to get somebody who you need to train and mold. That can be extremely valuable. If they match your company culture, then go for it and spend some time training the individual, and they will appreciate that.
And I do believe, and I agree with Rachel, that sometimes the person who fits, like I said, soft skills versus the hard skill of the job, sometimes I believe the person with the soft skills that meets your missions and your culture, I believe sometimes is almost a better fit, because you can teach somebody a lot of things. You can't teach them how to interact within the culture that you choose to foster. Right.
Good point. And Joan, we're going to have all of these on our website, so you can get a copy of this. It'll probably be up tomorrow, but absolutely, you will be able to see this recording on the CertaPay website. And if you go to the news tab, the very bottom tab under news is Coffee Break, and they are all in there. So this one and the last Coffee Break that we did, the first one of the year, and then all of 2020. Do we have any other questions this morning? Fantastic. Well, next week we're going to talk about some different types of applicant tracking platforms and why it's valuable and how to use it as a tool that will help with your search and make you stronger and better. And as always, CertaPay values you, we appreciate you, and we thank you for your time this morning. So on behalf of myself and Cindy and the entire CertaPay team, we hope you're having a wonderful week, and we look forward to seeing you on our next coffee break. Thank you so much for joining us today.